Pero,
Good afternoon, JJ. Good afternoon to all the participants. Good afternoon to our friend Clarice. You mentioned the Asia Pacific Privacy Authorities Forum held in Cebu. Clarice was there. She shared her expertise with all of us. Clarice is a ringside viewer of what's going on in well, generally about privacy, but she sitting in the ringside watching developments in the ASEAN. A pleasant good afternoon to everyone, and I hope everybody is in good health amidst this pandemic. Just yesterday, of course, our president announced that we will continue to be in GCQ. I'm talking about Metro Manila. I just had a glimpse of our participants. JJ, I'm happy to see that many are coming, calling in from the other regions. I saw someone from Masbate, from Batangas, really, the attendance today speaks, of course, highly of your ability to attract our data protection officers as a also as a practitioner, as a respected professional. But I really am hopeful, of course, that the DPOs are here as privacy champions. But I also understand the situation that we are all in, and also that of the DPOs during this time. I cannot divorce my talk from COVID-19, and really, I will take this opportunity, if you don't mind, all the participants here, to really report out on what's happening. Let me make this a very candid exchange with all the participants this afternoon of developments in the NPC, what we have observed so far. And this is much needed before we can really jump towards really projecting the trajectory of where this is all headed. So I have JJ, you owe me one. I burned the midnight oil just to prepare for this. But while I was writing it and talking about data privacy trajectories, humaba na eh. And I sabi ko, let me just do this as sort of a report, to everyone. I did not prepare any slides, unfortunately. So I just hope that everyone listens intently to this. COVID-19 is constantly altering all facets of human society, from our mundane activities such as shopping and dining, up to more complex and collaborative functions such as business operations and governance. We are seeing all these changes not only in the Philippines, but also in jurisdictions and governments and states across the globe. Various government and civic interventions to prevent the spread of the disease are intensifying the use of personal data. Consequently, data security and protection, or the lack thereof, determine the effects of data collection, use, and processing, and its impacts to the concerned data subjects. In the earliest stages of the pandemic, we have seen the effects of the misuse, and we're working on to prevent the misuse of personal data. Yung pong maling gamit at yung hindi nagamit, the misuse. Unauthorized disclosure of sensitive personal information of COVID-19 patients, which resulted in social vigilantism, discrimination, and stigmatization, physical assaults against our frontliners, and many more incidents of data privacy violations create risks more harmful than the virus itself. On the other hand, we're also concerned about the misuse of data to fight this pandemic. That is why we have tried our best to provide guidance on the proper use and sharing of data. We have involved ourselves in directly contributing to government measures, such as the crafting of contact tracing policies with the DOH, reviewing data sharing agreements with concerned agencies to effect the distribution of SAP, social amelioration packages, and other relief packages to the needy and the marginalized. You're talking about the DOF, the DSWD, the DOLE, and the NEDA. We have no playbook which provides the perfect strategies against a pandemic of this scale. However, we at the National Privacy Commission are always tuned in for rising issues and challenges faced by both public and private institutions in their fight against the disease. We are issuing bulletins to address emerging privacy concerns and to guide everyone on the best practices of data protection, especially where the use, collection, and processing of data is involved. As the virus continues its lock on the nation, it is important to realize that COVID-19 is imposing both immediate and long-term impacts to governments, businesses, regulations, and human interactions. This is highlighted by a growing digitization of a wide range of human activities, which are most likely going to be of a permanent nature. This trend will continue as we discover new beneficial uses of data, even after the COVID-19 pandemic. Unfortunately, most of us are not prepared for this sudden tectonic shift. If we examine closely, most of our existing regulations and business practices rely heavily on close and personal contacts within a physical workplace. Hence, there is a need to revisit and update our traditional practices, data protection tools, and analysis of legal requirements to keep up with the times and to reduce risks associated with digitization. Organizational accountability will play a key role in ensuring a data-resilient environment. Unlike the natural risks created by COVID-19, privacy risks are man-made. They can be prevented and mitigated, especially when we utilize the principles of accountability as a tool to support high standards of data protection. To project the trajectory of data privacy, one has to really project, before we can project the course of the future, we need to turn to the lessons of the past. And our data in the NPC show that even before this abrupt digital transformation forced by the COVID-19 pandemic, our people have already started shifting to the digital way of doing things. In 2019, we saw the sudden rise in popularity of obtaining microloans, online lending, not from the traditional channels, but from the comfort and convenience of the smartphones. By simply downloading an app, people had ready access to instant credit without collateral, or so we thought. From just over 200 complaints received by the NPC in 2019, it blew up by increasing 900%, or a staggering 1,800 plus complaints in 2019. More than 80% of these complaints were related to online lending applications. The common privacy complaint was that when they defaulted in their loans, these online lending companies would contact people in their phone contact lists and shame them into paying their outstanding loans. No collateral loans? Not quite. Apparently, the personal information and the reputation were the collateral. At the start of 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic forced us to quickly adopt new technologies to solve our new normal problems. And some were too eager to embrace data-hungry technologies without giving privacy by design much thought. Unsurprisingly, we receive an increasing number of personal data breach notifications, some of which are from the academic sector. I'll be discussing that later. As we investigate these unfortunate incidents, we advise our schools and universities to beef up their privacy and data protection stance during this time. For just the first half of the year, the National Privacy Commission received a total of 120 data breach notifications. This already represents 75% of the total number we received back in 2019. As businesses and government offices turn to digital technologies to sustain operations amidst the pandemic, we are also starting to see a slight shift in the causes of breaches reported to us. In 2019, most breaches were caused by human error. 45% of those breaches that were reported to us were caused by human error. This year, malicious attacks now account for 44% of the breaches reported. followed closely by human error at 43%. The top specific causes were hacking, potential unauthorized disclosures, and simple email errors. Many of the systems that were hacked had SQL injection vulnerabilities. In terms of sector, health facilities suffered the most number of data breaches, 22%, since the pandemic entailed intensified personal data processing in the sector. It was followed by the education sector at 18%, as schools shifted to online platforms to enable various modes of learning while COVID-19 response is ongoing. The government and BPO sectors each accounted for 10% of the breaches. The non-bank financial institutions, 8%, and the banking and telecommunications sectors, 5% each. Based on these observations, we developed pertinent standards and engaged the sectors concerned. In response to the increasing number of breaches involving potential unauthorized disclosure of sensitive personal information of suspect, probable, and confirmed COVID-19 patients, we issued NPC Public Health Emergency Bulletin number 10 on how to protect patient data. Currently, we already have issued 15 bulletins during this pandemic. We advise PICs and PIPs in the health sector to first and foremost remind officials and employees of their ethical and legal duty to protect patient data, and to ensure that non-disclosure agreements and related contracts are in place and enforced. The sector was also reminded to establish access control for patient data based on list privileges, allowing health personnel only the minimum and necessary access to enable the performance of their functions. The importance of physical security measures in protecting patient data was also highlighted, since a number of the breaches resulted from weaknesses in this area. These measures include equipping facilities with physical access controls, disclosing patient data only to proper authorities and only in appropriate areas, protecting the device display from unauthorized or accidental viewing, and locking storage media away when not in use. We also emphasize the need to implement technical security measures when storing and transmitting patient data, encrypting data both in transit and at rest, and using a secure communication platform for care team collaboration and patient communication. Members of the education sector were gathered last June 26, as we noticed a surge of malicious attacks in schools during the second half of that month. We presented what the profiles of the breaches were, the vulnerabilities exploited, the weaknesses in the breach management we observed, and the recommendations to address these weaknesses. We highlighted the need for schools to invest in the privacy and security of their systems. This includes capacitating their teams. Unless they do, they will not be able to detect security incidents in a timely manner. Instead, they would continue to heavily rely on media and social media reports, which of course would mean that the damage is not only done, but also out in the public. Outsourced or done in-house, their system developers should adopt best application coding practices. Security audits and tests like the PIA, alam niyo lahat yan, and the VAPT, Vulnerability Assessment and Penetration Testing, should likewise be conducted. Most importantly, they should have clear security incident management policy and procedures to ensure timely and effective breach response. A few years back, we introduced the 5 pillars of accountability, compliance, and the practice of ethics. I just would like to go back to the slide of Clarice earlier, where she said it's really going back to the basics. And to the DPOs present today, it's really going back to the basics. Refresh yourselves. These 5 pillars, we set those in motion a few years back for periods like this. We were built for crises like this. In the private sector, business organizations are expected to reform their workforce practices to include the possibility of lockdowns or even work stoppages. Work from home and other alternative work arrangements will become the new norm to allow continued operations while ensuring the health and safety of their personnel. However, this setup is not without risks. Unauthorized access to and improper disposal of documents containing personal data due to unprotected home devices and physical files are just some of the potential dangers that come with it. In this context, data privacy accountability should be understood and implemented not only at an organization level, but also at the personal level of every employee. Majority of businesses are expected to refocus their strategies and resources to digital work, teleconferencing, and use of online solutions in lieu of traditional business protocols or processes. Hence, it is important to capacitate and familiarize members of the organizations, from top management to the rank and file workers, on the importance and implications of data protection and security. Data privacy as a concept should evolve within organizations as they adjust in the post-COVID-19 world. I'm already looking to a post-COVID-19 world. Hence, we will see the bigger role of data protection officers in corporate strategy and management, product development, human resources, finance, marketing, and almost all aspects of a business. You know, I had to mention a few weeks ago, I bumped into not literally bumped into somebody, a DPO, who told me that she was afraid that probably the DPOs will be the first to fall when retrenchment comes. And I told her that, on the contrary, I don't think that will happen because, again, as everyone shifts to a digital environment, the role of DPOs will ever be more important. And that's also the reason why I kept on issuing guidance and resources, materials to all of you, is to give you that confidence to tell your bosses on what to do during this time. In this regard, we foresee changes in the roles of the private sector in matters of public concerns, which are traditionally within the sole responsibility of the government. New private-public partnerships and joint activities may emerge and may include new ways on data sharing between private institutions and government agencies. I'm foreseeing this as a trajectory because, as you have seen here in our country, we talk about contact tracing, the first to respond was really the private sector. As a regulator, we are expected to implement and interpret the Data Privacy Act of 2012 and other pertinent legislation with a degree of flexibility that will allow new forms of collaboration between the government and the private sector while ensuring trust and compliance with legal requirements. I will now go to our regulatory role. Data privacy regulators across the globe, including the NPC, need to examine their participation and roles consistently, even after the COVID-19 pandemic, to remain relevant and in touch with technological advancements, business trends, and public sentiments. The same is true not only in the local occurrences, but also to the international media. Collaborative actions such as the Global Privacy Task Force on COVID-19, which is headed by the Philippines, will be a main measure during and post-COVID-19. Overall, our experiences are invaluable lessons to others, especially in other jurisdictions which are still undergoing similar experiences. These collective insights and experiences from data privacy authorities will pave the way for globally harmonized and consistent data protection rules on national, regional, and global levels. In the local setting, you can expect the National Privacy Commission to continue engaging our stakeholders constructively and implement responsive regulation as a main strategy for enforcement for enforcing the law. We will continue to maintain and enable trust of the citizenry in both the public and private sector so that people, in turn, will allow the use and sharing of their personal data for legitimate objectives. Accountability of data controllers and processors are needed to foster this culture of trust. Hence, as we move forward, the NPC will have to conduct close coordination with all of you, with all controllers and processors, in defining clear accountability frameworks, especially for responsible data use and the sharing between and among private and public organizations. We recognize the positive impacts of technological advancements in response against emerging situations and public health risks like COVID-19. Hence, there is a need to balance regulation to prevent curtailing innovation while ensuring the privacy that data subjects expect. To do so, the NPC, the National Privacy Commission, your National Privacy Commission, will facilitate beneficial uses of data by proactively demanding, explaining, and encouraging organizational accountability controls at all stages of data collection, use, and the entire processing. We in the National Privacy Commission are not immune to the challenges of this pandemic. Public service must continue, even if it necessitates working mostly on a work-from-home arrangement, conducting meetings through video conferencing platforms, sending emails instead of paper memos, digitally signing reports, orders, and resolutions. And soon, by the way, we will be conducting virtual hearing of cases. We are also active in the ongoing debates on the proposal now in Congress to revisit the now 8-year-old Data Privacy Act of 2012 to adapt to the fast-evolving privacy landscape. Finally, we should always remember to look at both sides of the coin. Just as technological tools have their benefits, they still present risks over time and are prone to attacks, hacking, abuses, and other nefarious purposes. To this end, the National Privacy Commission will establish a framework for ongoing review and oversight to ensure that these tools are only used for legitimate purposes, that our data remains secure and consistently updated with the most relevant security features. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone. Thank you, JJ, and I'm happy that there are so many DPOs here present, and I hope you understand where the NPC is really coming from, and I hope we have been of help to you during this time. Thank you very much.